Welcome to the Mama Making Podcast, a space for moms figuring it out in real time, at home, at work, and everywhere in between. Hosted by me, Jessica Lamb, this show is here to help you feel a little less alone in the mess and magic of motherhood. Each week brings a mix of solo reflections, expert interviews, and real stories from moms leaning into themselves, whether that's into parenting, into entrepreneurship, or just surviving the day. Because there's no one way to do motherhood, and you don't have to do it alone. If that sounds like your kind of vibe, make sure to follow the show, share it with a friend, and keep showing up, exactly as you are. This episode of the Mama Making Podcast is sponsored by Trustworthy, the digital vault I wish I had years ago. If you're anything like me, you've got important stuff everywhere. The kids' birth certificates in one drawer, passwords in your notes app, and the one important legal doc, that's somewhere. Trustworthy makes it easy to keep all of your family's most important info, from insurance and IDs to guardianship plans and school records, all in one ultra-secure, easy-to-share space. It's built for real families, and it actually makes staying organized feel doable. That's trustworthy.com. Start with Trustworthy today. That's trustworthy.com. Now on to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mama Making Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica. If you're new, welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. I am very excited to have this next guest on the podcast. We have the founder and CEO of Trustworthy, Nat Robinson. Trustworthy is born from a powerful life moment, selling a company to Microsoft and becoming a dad on the very same day. The Trustworthy platform helps families manage the chaos of daily life and long-term legacy, from school forms to wills, all the documents. Today's episode, we're going to chat more about why information management matters, how AI can help moms and families stay organized, and legacy build in the little moments. And then also learn a bit more about Nat. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Jessica. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, where you're from, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, sure. A New Zealander. Originally, I grew up in New Zealand for about the first half of my life. And then my career led me to the United States, where I've been for a good long while now, enjoying a career in technology and predominantly software across a bunch of different companies, some large enterprise companies, and then a handful of small early stage startup companies now.
That's awesome. So take us back to where Trustworthy all kind of began. What was that moment that sparked the idea for Trustworthy?
Yeah, you touched on it. Two big things happened on exactly the same day. Our last company called Mile IQ was acquired by Microsoft. The very same day that the announcement was happening with all the employees in San Francisco, my wife just went into labor and our son was born, and I had to call into the office and say, hey guys, sorry, I can't make it into the office. But today I have to, go to the hospital instead. And obviously two kind of big things happening on the same day, a bit of a windfall, some money in the bank, and the birth of a son, which is obviously a life-changing event. And my dad brain engaging and thinking beyond my own selfish needs. And how do we cater to this new person and this new life? What does that mean? And what if something were to happen to me? Would my family be okay? And so I did all the things that everyone does. Is I started asking around, what do you do? You've got kids. What's your situation? And found that everyone kind of was doing the same thing, that they were all trying to DIY a system for themselves, really for two big reasons. One, for themselves. And one is, if I need a bit of information, where can I find it quickly? And the moment that I need it, I need the VIN number to the car, or I need my driver's license, or I need an insurance policy. I'm trying to do a transaction, and maybe I need a lot of bits of information. I don't want to spend the whole weekend gathering those and sharing them, in a secure way. How do I build a system just for that use case? And then, of course, the other big use case was, if something happened, if I get hit by a bus, if I walk out the door today and I don't walk in, would my family know where to go to find what we now call the treasure map, the sort of the list of all the things? And there's a great story behind this treasure map metaphor, because we had an early customer who was retired, or is a retired Navy captain, and he had precious metals buried on his property, gold and who knows what else. And if you put those two together, he's kind of a pirate, right? He was in the Navy
Right.
and
Yeah.
he had precious metals. And obviously the question that we asked him when we were doing research was like, does your family know, which tree or shrub they're buried under and how many paces from the back door? Where's the treasure map for that stuff? And he's like, yeah, they know. Obviously, but that became a really good metaphor for kind of what trustworthy became across those two big use cases. Where do I go to find the things that I'm looking for? How do my family and loved ones and other folks in my ecosystem know where to find the important information when they need it in a moment of crisis, some debilitating moment, or some natural disaster, or across all life's moments, where does that information live? And so we tried building some of these systems ourselves everyone was using analog or digital tools, the ones they felt most comfortable with, which has a bit of a generational break, right? A generational divide. And they're all kind of falling short in the same arenas, right? They all kind of started with a blank page. Okay, I'm going to build the system. Let's say I'm using a Google Doc. Okay, blank page. There's no guidance. There's no help. There's nothing to help me remind what needs to go in there or what I should maybe have if I don't have things, just nothing. You had to build it all yourself and you had to maintain it all yourself. Things change, life happens across the spectrum. You buy and sell homes and you buy and sell stocks and your investments and really across the spectrum of all these big categories that we now cater to: property, finance, legal, insurance, memories, heirlooms, like all of the medical, all the big things that every family deals with. And they're all trying to build it and maintain it themselves. And then all of those tools that we're using were what we call dumb containers, meaning it doesn't know anything about the information that I'm putting in there, and it can't offer anything back. It can't offer really any smarts, right? Any intelligence around. Here's what I know about you. Here's what seems to be missing or what you might consider getting. A big one was temporality, meaning if I created this Google Doc and I want to share it with you, but I might not want to share everything with you today. I might want to hold some of that back for later. I might not want you to know that you're going to inherit $1 billion, right? Change your life or something of that nature. And this is really important when you consider family dynamics and, not wanting to create arguments or those kinds of things. So temporality was one that existing tools just didn't handle at all. And then the other ones were sort of like, oh, these are free tools. What are they doing with my information? Is this really secure? We wanted to have a business model that was really anchored in privacy and security. Our members would know there's no way we're ever going to sell your information. That's a core part of our brand and our promise is you're the arbiter of your information. Only you can decide who you want to share it with. But we help you do that in a really secure, private way. So those are some of the big things that we looked at solving for and building something that was purpose built. And we eventually called that the family operating system because that felt like what we're trying to do is, really build this trusted digital assistant for family life, for households, and all of that relevant information and all the related critical tasks that come with that, and help you stay on top of things and help you kind of rule at life.
Yeah, I think we can all think of an example where we're like, oh my God, where is this document? Or I have no idea where to even find this information. I'm thinking automatically of we just bought a home. So all of our home documents, some stuff you have to have hard copies, everything else is like in a Google Drive somewhere. But in those like more scary, maybe catastrophic moments, it sounds like a no-brainer that you want to have a treasure map that lists where everything you could ever need would be, just to have more ease in that time frame.
You mentioned too, like I can't wait to talk about these because it's a very germane moment. You mentioned, buying, selling a home, so much documentation, inspections, realtors coming through, all the paperwork that you get as part of the transaction from the notaries, from the title companies. We did one last year. And it was so great to be able to say, hey, folks, if you're sending us anything, please copy my Trustworthy email ID so that any attachments would go straight into Trustworthy. They get processed by our AI feature called Autopilot, and then knows exactly where to put it in the system related to that particular property. And that was such a relief in not having to be like, did we get all the documentation? Is it stored? Is it recorded? Do we know where it is? It all just automatically flowed into Trustworthy as part of that transaction. So that's a great sort of hot tip if you're considering using Trustworthy and you have these kinds of moments. The other one is we had a customer earlier this year lives in Altadena, and along with 15,000 of his neighbors lost their home earlier this year. But two really important things. He was able to leave his home, grab a few possessions. I've got minutes to get out the door, grab a few treasured possessions, but knowing all his documents were safe and secure and trustworthy, not have to think about those and be able to get out of there much faster. And then more importantly, on the recovery side, he said it's like having a full-time job and working with local government, federal government, the insurance companies. His process has been so much faster because he had proof of everything, his insurance policies, his property, all the documents around the property and everything else that he needed were so available to him that he could immediately say, look, here's everything that you need to process my claims. His claim process went incredibly smoothly. It was easier for the insurance companies to say, well, yeah, everything's here. Of course we can approve this. Couple of instances of, life moments, crisis that don't happen often. But of course we hear from everyone who's like, oh, the flood, the tornado, the hurricane, the, increasing sort of number of climate change related events. I wish we'd had Trustworthy before we lost the house, before something, catastrophic happened. It's easy to think about those big life moments, but Trustworthy, I think many of our members are surprised how often they use it on a sort of day-to-day or weekly basis, just looking up at a bit of information or filling out a school form or summer camp form or something for the kids, sharing information with coaches and other caretakers, or just, the day-to-day sort of mundanity of like, oh, we've got to renew this thing, we've got to pay this thing. Trustworthy really helps you stay on top of all of those use cases.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking of my own lack of organization system and that this is in this box and this one is in this folder over here. If I had
Yeah.
minutes to grab all of my things, there's not a chance I would remember where everything was. So like you said, obviously those catastrophic moments, it's incredibly helpful. And what a testimonial from the person who experienced the fires to be able to be like, one less thing to worry about, or many things I don't have to worry about now.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Jeremy, his name's Jeremy, and now he's a big part of our marketing because it's such a powerful story. But there's hundreds of stories like that across folks who have been able to adopt Trustworthy. We had another member who sort of came at it from a different angle. His name's Scott, and he thought, oh, we're pretty organized. He actually works for a big benefits company. And he's like, we're pretty organized. And then he had a heart failure and a subsequent heart replacement surgery, which is
Wow.
crazy. Obviously a massive surgery and recovery process. And he said, we very quickly realized we weren't sufficiently organized when I was in hospital and my wife was frantically trying to find the paperwork that we needed in that moment. Was a huge catalytic moment for them, and obviously heavily became quickly after they got through this crisis, became a rabid Trustworthy member and has everything dialed in for him and his wife and his teenage daughters as well.
That's amazing. What do you think, going into kind of the building of Trustworthy, you obviously worked in tech prior. What does building something for family, how does it differ building something for families from traditional tech? I imagine there's a few different considerations.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing in considering families in particular is that they're busy, right? That there already is a lot of load on families, especially moms who take a lot of the mental load and the literal and invisible labor of managing things across the home. So we really had to figure out, how do we make this really easy, right? Because everyone wants to be in an organized and prepared state, but that takes some time and effort, or historically it's taken time and effort. Even, in the early versions of Trustworthy, you had to do quite a bit of work to get everything set up. There are absolutely benefits on the other side of that, like knowing where everything is, it's safe and secure, I could share it with folks, but it was a lot of curation work to do. And we've been progressively addressing this problem by surrounding members with ways to do it, to make it easy. You can download the mobile app on Android or iOS. There's a scanner there. You can quickly scan things in. We have a Chrome plugin. You can forward things from email, or you send things to your Trustworthy email address. Just lots and lots of ways that we've made it easy. But really, I think the biggest breakthrough for us and for members was starting to introduce some intelligent features that did a lot of the heavy lifting for them. And sort of behind the scenes is we've trained, there's a term called agentic knowledge graph that we've built around household data. So we built a system that understands your documents essentially, whether that's a bank statement or a letter from your insurance company or something from the kid's school. We are able to process that and say, okay, we know what this is and what to do with it. And we start mapping the different entities across your household. So we're now doing a lot of the work for you. You don't have to type anything in anymore. You just add documents as you have the opportunity. And in a forthcoming release, you won't even have to do that because you can authorize us to grab things, attachments from your email as they arrive. So that's coming in. That's a bit of a preview of what's coming soon. But really, we're headed towards this destination of you don't have to lift a finger. All you have to do is sign up, and we'll take over from there and manage things for you and build it automatically end to end. Is really where we're headed. So I think that's a primary consideration is how do we get rid of that inertia? How do we do it for you so you don't have to do it yourself? The other component is we talk about sort of these two circles of trust, this inner circle of you and your partner and your loved ones. It could be parents or guardians or trustees or friends, whatever, in the inner circle of trust, and then outwardly to some number of professionals that you might work with, an accountant for taxes or tax prep, an estate planning attorney, a realtor, maybe insurance broker, wealth manager, or some kind of financial services professional can all be part of your trustworthy ecosystem, and you can give them access just to the parts that you need them to have access to. So that's just another way that sort of those many hands makes light work. You don't have to do it all yourself. These folks probably already know some things about you and certainly have work product or deliverables that they owe you, like your tax returns or financial statements or whatever it is that they're working on with you, an estate plan maybe. And so these are all the ways that we just sort of make it really easy for you to okay, you can sign up and then invite these folks and they can help you do it. You and your partner can do it together. It's very collaborative in nature. So you don't have to do it all yourself are really the big things that we think about. And then the next stages are how do we use that intelligence to give you things that you don't have yet? So looking across your system, maybe asking you a few questions about, what are your considerations? Are you dealing with a big life moment like now? Now, are you getting married? Are you having a child? Are you changing jobs? Are you moving homes or states or countries? Is maybe someone and you're taking care of someone? It's very common actually across our membership, almost half the people are taking care of someone, an elder or a special needs family member or something like that, has its own load. So how do we help you in that moment? And how do we help you build a more robust system and guide you toward that, as well as looking at the things that you have and saying, are these optimal? So, car insurance is one that no one likes to shop, right? Because it's a laborious process and am I still getting the same coverage? But intelligence is well suited. Computers are well suited to do these sort of comparative work, right? And say, hey, look, I maybe found a better price over here for the same coverage. Here's a few options. Would you like to consider those and save money across your whole system? Certainly in car insurance, but more broadly is in the near term, the kind of thing that we'll be offering to families.
That's amazing. You have perfectly teed up my next question, which was with the growth of AI more generally, how do you guys manage utilizing AI to support the convenience factor of Trustworthy while also paying attention to that balance of privacy and sensitive data versus ease of use for the program? Like you said, there's a generational divide a bit on AI. As a Gen Zer, or a millennial, I am totally open to AI. I know Gen Zers are using it constantly, but the baby boomer generation and everyone in between is I'm not really sure. Like you said, there's a lot of people taking care of family members. So how do you guys balance that on your Trustworthy team?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I mentioned, privacy and security was a fundamental part. We spent years building out a very robust and secure platform for members and going through all the diligence and getting all the compliance. So it's not just us saying it's secure, it's third-party auditors and compliance bodies, and okay, you meet or exceed the standards. And that was it's embedded into everything we do. But it was, as we considered AI, there were really only a couple of ways that we could make it make sense from a privacy and security point of view. And one of them was going to the sort of the big LLM that we use and saying, look, we have to be able to have a zero retention policy for our member data, meaning they don't hold any of the data in memory, if you like, and certainly not training any. So two big things, them not holding it and us having that policy, which is actually very hard to get, but we got it. I think we're probably one of the few partner companies for this particular LLM that has this zero retention policy. The other one was we don't want to train our agentic knowledge graph on user data. So we use synthetic documents. So we create a document that's like, okay, this is a bank statement, and we train on what that looks like. So those were really the two biggest considerations. Obviously, that you would never, basic security models that you're never going to be looking at someone else's data. You only ever can look at your own family household data. But those are the two big elements around AI. And when we got to a place of, yes, those are achievable, then we felt comfortable, saying, okay, what would a first set of features look like? So we optimized around curation because that is the hard part for families. And you say, okay, what would that look like? Okay, you don't have to type information in because we can extract all that from your documents and even beyond the fields that we had said you probably need. We now have a greater set of metadata that's available to you as a household. The other thing that we did is we didn't really need it, but we built in this checkpoint when we processed each of your documents to say, hey, did we get this right? Does this look right to you? And yeah, you can edit the results if maybe we got something wrong so that we weren't putting incorrect data into the system. That was an important part. We're going to give people the option to remove that pretty soon because we no longer need it, but it was a really healthy checkpoint. And if people still want it, we obviously want them to feel in control so they can still have it. But we've sort of progressed. We're progressing quickly to this completely automated end to end. We'll organize and everything for you so you have it available. Those are some of the big elements. I'm sure there'll be more as we go forward in terms of who gets access to what. And I think in particular, the sort of generative nature of, hey, look, we know some things about you, or the system knows things about you, and we can use that information to generate new things. One tool that we have today that's very popular around this loss of a loved one moment is a eulogy writer. Sitting down to write a eulogy is hard, right? It can be debilitating because where do I start? I'm looking at a blank piece of paper again. And so we ask a couple of questions about your loved one, and that, gets you 70 to 80% of the way there because we generate this eulogy and you could personalize it and edit it from there. But that's kind of one of the generative tools that we use when we have a bit of information that we can say, great, we can do more of this stuff. But you need a babysitter list to share with caretakers for your kids. Great, we can generate that based on what we know, what's in your system. Do you need a simple trust or will? We think we'll be able to generate those kinds of things for you very soon here when we get to this next, what we're calling sort of V2 or AI native version of Trustworthy.
That's amazing because I think there's so many programs out there that will just hold your documents like a Google Drive or an app that will just host your documents, but being able to wade through what is necessary to be in there, where you want to have it sit in terms of like folders and all of that, being able to utilize simply an email definitely got my ears perked up just because there, like you said, there is that added mental load of working through these things and what things do I need to keep, what's important, what's not. And I think the utilization of AI and being able to see what your users are utilizing and how it can be improved is amazing. Because I think things evolve so quickly that I love the use of AI to be able to also grow with what your clients need.
Yeah, we've sort of looked in this world, this SaaS world, right? This is really came around when software as a service or SaaS came around. This idea of like, oh, I get free functionality, but they get my data, like Facebook and Google and other big companies. And we really want to try and turn that around to be you own your data. It's valuable. You should be remunerated for that if you decide to share it with someone. And our approach to that is we have this marketplace today of partners with products and services, and it's wide ranging. Maybe you need a family assistant to help you take care of some things day to day. We have a partner called Sundays who does that. If you have an estate transition that you're dealing with, we have a partner called Alex that does that. Or if you just want some, pet insurance, we have providers for those kinds of things. So really across the board. And pretty soon here, we're going to be in the situation where we're saying, look, looks like you might have some gaps in your system. I noticed you added a pet in your family. Lots of families do that, but you don't have pet insurance or you haven't added it. Would you like to get some? We have a number of partners who can provide that. And here's roughly what it looks like. But when do you want to share your information with those folks? And because you're basically monetizing your information. Well, you would think we are. Our intent is to give you the lion's share of that, whatever affiliate fee we get handed back from that successful transaction when you buy pet insurance. So
Yeah.
this is sort of turning the model around, like your information, if you share it, you get paid for it. We might take a transaction fee, but it's nominal compared to the money that you get back. And you can spend that on other things in the marketplace or towards your subscription fees or really any way you like. So that's, I think, a fundamental part of what we're sort of trying to flip around is don't just give your information away. It's valuable. You should benefit from it when you share it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you guys have really focused on obviously creating something convenient, but something that builds trust within your clients, which kind of leads me into the question of how has being a dad and fatherhood impacted the way that you've built this company, how you kind of view your leadership and success in Trustworthy?
Yeah.
It's kind of a
And
big question.
yeah, I'm probably getting emotional here. The dad brain thing is real. I mean, or yeah, I think for any parent, not just for dads, obviously, but this idea of like waking up in the middle of the night. I don't know, you know, your kid going to school today, and is there going to be an emergency event at school, or the anxiety around, food. Is he eating healthy food? How do we get healthy food that doesn't have plastics? Like all the mental load of just having kids is real. And because we're so family oriented, we wanted to build a company that was the same way. And so, I'd say we've built a very family friendly company. Not all of our, employees have families or kids, but everyone belongs to a family, right? They came from a family, they have parents. I think whatever side of the equation you're on, and we talked about the generational shift, it feels relevant, right? It feels like, hey, this is either going to help me in my adult life or help my parents who are approaching that horizon inevitably, or some other family member. So I think it's very easy for people to relate to. And hiring is for people to come work at Trustworthy is easy because they're like joining a cause for good, right? And it's not steps removed from, like I'm trying to solve world peace or I'm trying to send money to kids in Africa or something. It's very immediately my family. This is relevant for my family. And it's interesting how many stakeholders, investors, and business partners from big banks and insurance companies all have this kind of same reaction of like, I need this or my parents need this, right? Depending on where. And it's gratifying to be able to work on something like this. You look forward to coming to work and solving these problems every day. Like, hey, this is great. We moved up to Portland, Oregon from San Francisco a couple of years ago. And we said, this filing cabinet is not coming with us. This big 3x3 metal filing cabinet, which frankly in San Francisco was a luxury anyway, in terms of the real estate that it takes up.
Right.
And so we went through that process and now, our whole lives are in Trustworthy. And I don't know how we'd replace it, right? If it went away for some reason, I'm like, man, this is going to be such a task. And I just won't ever be able to rebuild what we've built for Families and Trustworthy. And that would suck to have to go through that. So in many ways, the catalyst for why we built this is now the reason to keep building it because the alternatives are terrible.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. In the vein of continuing to grow Trustworthy, where do you kind of see Trustworthy going? What are some things that you'd like to see Trustworthy do that they don't now? What do you see things looking like?
Yeah, great question. I, think some of the other companies in this space are very focused on digital vaults or, file storage. And that's commoditized, right? You can get that anywhere. I don't think there's much future in that. So we are barreling towards this digital family assistant future where you get intelligence applied to your document, where it turns those documents into action for you, action that you don't have to do yourself, that ultimately an agentic component will say, hey, it's time to renew your driver's license. Would you like me to do that for you? And it navigates to the DMV site and says, hey, I recommend you use this credit card that you have on file because you're going to get the best return, best points or best rewards from that credit card when you do this transaction. And by the way, can you authorize it? I need $40 to renew your license at the DMV. And it navigates there and it does it, assuming it can do it online for you. Now, I can't handle the last mile necessarily. It might say, oh, I wasn't able to process this online, but I made an appointment for you to go down to the DMV. Sorry, you're going to have to show up because they want to take your picture. Now, the good news is that even government is becoming more digital and you may not have to do that in the future. You have to, work with a professional say, this is an accurate representation of who I am, and uploads that picture, yada, yada. But that's where I think we're headed is digital family assistant, taking care of things for you, handling all of the mundane things you don't want to deal with, highlighting opportunities for you where maybe it's time to refinance your mortgage, or you've got to renew like your term life insurance, or some big event that you don't want to miss, because if you do, it's going to cost you. You get penalties and late fees and all of those. You get pulled over, your driver's license is expired. All of those things you don't want to deal with in life, it will be handled for you. And we want obviously to be that solution for your household. We have a good amount of it already built and available today, and there's amazing stuff coming in the next few months.
Yeah, it sounds like there's already a lot built so that does a lot of that management for you, but hearing that there's more to come is really exciting.
Yeah, it's really in our space, especially. We could not have seen the amount of compute power that became available to us through intelligent agents that enable these kinds of things to be automated for you on at scale, like for every family, right? So we're still grappling with like what almost like what can't we do now? Okay, yeah, this is where things like physically we can't do, but there's so much that we can do, and we're heavily invested in bringing that to families as quickly as possible.
That's so exciting. So I have a couple just what we're calling lightning round questions, both about you and about Trustworthy. So just go with your gut on whatever your response is. The first one is, what is your favorite Trustworthy feature that you personally use the most?
That's a good one. I was just using this yesterday. For some reason, my insurance company, even though they're saying things to me digitally, I got 3 policy updates. I was like, all right, I'm going to scan these in. And so we have built an integration with Ricoh ScanSnap scanners, which is one of the leading document scanners. So if you have a lot of paper documents, it's a good way to become digital. So I scan them in, and because we built this integration, as soon as they get scanned in, they get sent directly to Trustworthy, and I can then go ahead and shred the bits of paper and recycle them. So I really like that feature from a sort of old world, new world transition point of view. We used it a lot when we were getting rid of that filing cabinet, and it's super fast. So that's one of my favorite features. And the scanners, it's like a few $100s. So it's well worth it if you have a lot of old legacy paper lying around and you want to free up the space.
Yeah, definitely. I don't use a lot of paper stuff and I don't usually keep a lot of it, but I can think of a specific folder I have that I'm like, I have to keep this. I never look at it, and that would be the perfect solution. All right. Next question is, what is one thing that you did not expect when building a product for families?
That's an interesting one. I think that one of the things we didn't think about coming in to this was beyond this generational shift of the sort of, this isn't really a fit for baby boomers. They didn't grow up with technology. They don't really trust it. They certainly don't want to put their stuff into the cloud. What does that mean? We end up focusing more on Gen X and millennials now because for a whole bunch of reasons, but they're a good fit. Category people that didn't occur to us from the outset, but obviously should have, are first responders and military members who are obviously in jeopardy on a regular basis. And probably when they're going to work every day, or their partners, or think like, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, right? This is an uncertain world, and they live in an uncertain job. And, we hear about firemen and policemen getting hurt all the time. So that is a really important, and I'm trying to say is it's an important category for us, so much so that we provide a 50% discount for everyone first responders, military veterans, and way more. We get a very healthy number of those students coming to us every day saying, hey, I'd like to get the discount. We ask them for some proof of identity and they share it. But I think that's a category of people that I hadn't really considered coming into. Now it seems so obvious.
Yeah, I was just going to say it seems like a no-brainer, but when you're just thinking families in general, that might not be the first thought. But yeah, I mean, they're going into harm's way every day.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's one I'm actually very proud that we can help.
Yeah, that's amazing. So last one, what is your favorite tech tool that is not trustworthy?
Does it have to be, it's like either hardware or software, right?
Whatever you use the most, whatever's your favorite, totally up to you.
I think the thing I use the most is my iPhone.
Yeah.
That's probably a pretty boring answer, but
Yeah. No, I think that's all of us. We can all relate.
It's my iPhone and my iPods, those two things are so helpful. And I think not just from a application point of view, just from a being mobile point of view, being able to work from anywhere almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
is a big unlock. Like I can take my son to swimming and still be working while he's swimming, right? I think you see so many parents that doing that. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, awesome. Well, do you have anything else that you want to share with our listeners about Trustworthy that you didn't already share?
Sure. If folks want to know more about Trustworthy, they can just go to trustworthy.com. We have regular Getting Started with Trustworthy webinars that are live because we love talking to you and hearing your questions live and finding solutions for you within Trustworthy. We have one coming up in a week, I think. So that's a good opportunity to learn more. And we also have a completely free plan. You don't need a credit card. There's no time limit. There are some constraints on that plan, but you can use it indefinitely for free. And we'd love you to do that before, so you can kick the tires and see if it's a fit for your family.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I was really excited to chat with you about all things Trustworthy and kind of see where it all began. So I appreciate you sharing your backstory and then all about Trustworthy.
Very happy to do that. Thanks for having me, Jessica.
That's it for today's episode of the Mama Making Podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or follow us on social media. We love hearing what's landing for you. And most importantly, keep making your way through. You're never in this alone. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.